Okay. Okay, so I'm here with John Riordan, who is the Director of Support at Shopify, and he is also the Chair of the Shopify International Board and is based in Ireland. So, John, thank you so much for making the time to chat with me today. Do you want to give us a quick rundown on where you are in Ireland and also what Shopify is for those who have used it?
Sure. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me on. I'm based in Cork in Ireland, which is the most people in Ireland would refer to as the real capital, said with a deep, deep, deep chip on my shoulder. But anyway, we'll skip that one by. So it's in the southwest coast of Ireland, next stop Boston. Basically, you go for a swim in the water, and 3,000 miles later, you get out in Boston. So I'm working for Shopify, as you mentioned. So what is Shopify? Shopify is basically an e-commerce or a commerce platform that allows anyone to set up an online store and sell their products. We're a B2C or a B2B company where our customers are our merchants, and these merchants can also sell their products in person using a whole variety of products that we offer, like a Shopify point of sale system and a variety of other things. We provide capital and we provide logistics, and we've started in North America now with a whole fulfillment network. So Shopify started in 2006 when the founder Toby Lutke wanted to sell snowboards with his company, which was called Snow Devil, and he quickly realized that it was a cyclical business and you'd sell a lot in the wintertime and nothing in the summertime. And he realized that the underlying software that he had built was really good, and the business morphed into essentially an e-commerce platform, and we now have over 1 million merchants all over the world on the Shopify platform. And our focus is on removing friction from every player in the e-commerce world, so that anybody and everybody can become an entrepreneur and can avail of all of the benefits of being an entrepreneur. So our development team's focus is making the product better and rolling it out to our merchants as quickly as possible so that everybody can have a better business.
Very cool. And I guess for us as the general consumer of products online, a lot of people wouldn't know that they're actually using Shopify because you're working with the business that is selling the goods that you're buying. And I just wanted to clarify as well that your founder was actually in Canada. He wasn't trying to sell snowboards in Dublin. So that would make...
That's correct, sir. Yeah. He was a German in Canada selling snowboards.
Well, I reached out to John because I have been following along with Shopify after seeing one of their head staff present at a conference one time. And Shopify has got this amazing company global setup around the fact that you have a really strong remote, well, you are pre-COVID, a hybrid business in that there was a head office in Canada, but with a lot of your global team working remotely. And how you hire, how you onboard, how you fire, but how you also run your teams is just really intriguing. And I think that there is just so many gold nuggets that you've got trapped away in that head of yours that what you guys do at Shopify that I think are some huge takeaways for both business owners and the people that are doing the work in the market.
So Joe, I'll give you a bit of context first of all. So come March 2020, we were probably 60% office-based and 40% remote. And the vast majority of our team that worked from home were our support staff who are based all around the world. We've got a large group in New Zealand, Lithuania, Ireland, all over Canada. And we also have some folks with an outsourced partner in Asia. And a lot of the management team of the support organization were also remote. But the rest of the company was, I'd say, fairly resolutely office-based. Suddenly, early March comes and washes over us. So suddenly this 60-65% of folks who are intentional office-going people who joined Shopify with the intention of working in an office are suddenly working from home. So what you saw was two really interesting competing cultures, where we had within the support organization at Shopify an incredibly vibrant culture of work from home, and that really worked. And we were ingesting the other 65% of the company, many of whom were, they had seen the benefits of it over the previous couple of years working, but were suddenly going, but do I have to do that now? Like me? So what's been fantastic and fascinating, and it's almost like sitting in the middle of a case study in a Harvard Business Review or something, watching how one group sort of ingested the other. So to sit and watch in a Slack channel and watch another couple of thousand people having those revelatory moments when they've just discovered, a standing desk. Oh, wow. All these kind of things that, for those of us who've been in the work from home space for a period of time, we just see it as relatively normal and basic. So that's been one of the interesting things, is watching those two competing cultures. But the main part of your question was, the culture that we create and how do we do it. So I'll take you back a couple of years when Shopify, from a support perspective, decided to go remote. In Canada, the vast majority of the merchants at the time were in North America. And it was very easy to have a team of people supporting the merchants in North America, because you typically had, the opening hours of kind of 8 a.m. Eastern time to probably 10 o'clock Eastern time. And it was relatively easy to staff that. When the company started getting more global, the challenge was, how do you service the merchants who are contacting essentially the middle of the night from an East Coast US, East Coast North American time zone? So the easy thing to do correctly that the support organization did was they brought in an overnight shift. Now, Shopify was an attractive place to work, great culture. So it was there were a lot of people knocking on the door trying to get in. So of course the entry point was to come in on the night shift. Yeah. But of course, the first thing anybody does when they join when they try to get into a company, and they'll take whatever job they can get to get in, what's the first thing they do? They move to the day shift the minute something appears, or they move to another department. So you had a constant revolving door, and the culture of the company almost had this challenge where this revolving door in the nighttime group meant that it really never clicked, and it was the most disengaged group of people. And when you look back at it, it's so obvious, but at the time, it took the folks, a couple of months to go, hang on a second, there's a better way to do it. And there was some great thought process went into this, and it was, okay, let's go and experiment and do something from a remote perspective. So that was the decision to go remote rather than have an office-based team in the middle of the night. So the first step was to do that in Canada, and in the town of Kingston, which is about 2 hours outside of Ottawa. Student town, more transient group of people, highly educated. They were all over it. So that lit the spark and said, yes, this work from home thing can work. So that was step one. Step two was to move into a different time zone, and that's where Ireland came into it. So Ireland being 5 hours away, it became a really obvious point to plant a flag in Europe. And given that the company was 100% English language based at the time, where we made commerce better for everyone as long as you spoke and understood English. We have changed that, by the way. Ireland became an obvious point, Ireland and the UK, but the team came over to Ireland, and I think it might have had something to do with the Guinness and the oysters, I'm not sure, but Ireland was the choice. So in 2015, we set up, we hung out a shingle in Ireland and brought a group of people on board in Ireland, and that has then spawned the next level of growth. So I want to stop there just for a quick second, because that inflection point of going into Ireland was the beginning of the change of how we looked at distributed work.
Yeah. And I'm pleased you stopped there. So, well, I know this is what it's like dealing with all Irish people. It's hard to get a word in edgewise. So I thank you for giving me the little intro in there. I think that what you just segued in there is a really, really interesting concept. And I'm really interested to hear you sort of explain the thought process around how those first hires happened in Ireland, because I think there is such a huge opportunity for organisations, particularly big corporates in Australia, to really be looking at the regions or particular areas as a way to find, train, secure talent that works in your business for an extended period of time. So how did those first sort of hires happen in Ireland?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you one way that it shouldn't happen is just, just throw a couple of ads in the newspaper and just get people to come and work remote, and we'll take care of it from here. From here being wherever the kind of, let's say, the center point is. Absolutely not. A team of people came from Canada, came to Ireland, came to Galway on the west coast of Ireland, and we decided to center it around the town of Galway. We hired 50 people, and we did in-classroom training. So here we were going to do a remote work from home job, and in the summertime we took one of the colleges that was out of their academic year, and we brought the folks in and we did the training in classroom in the summertime. Now, why that worked so well was it gave people a North Star, and it kind of planted a flag. Like, these are real people and it's a real job. I mean, the big joke was these folks applied for a job, and many of them, their parents were like, that's not real. It's not a real job. And people coming in, look, I just got a MacBook Pro in the mail. It's real. Okay. So we wanted to prove that it was a real job. So the folks showed up with their MacBook Pros, did the training course with a couple of trainers from Canada, and one or two of our team leads came over from Canada as well to help with the kind of the cultural acclimation. And that took a couple of months, and some of the team leads stayed behind to make sure that culture got carried forward. So once the leadership team for Ireland obviously came out of that initial group of 50, there were a couple of obvious leaders. Once that leadership team was deemed to be strong enough, the folks who came over from Canada just pulled away. So that was the first kind of key point, was to do it in person at first to get some market resonance. That's all well and good. Now, Irish people, as you well know, we are a peripatetic, itinerant group of people who just disperse all over the place. So you try to corral us. So the first 50 might have all been in and around the town of Galway. I'm sure the minute the Canadians left, there were people straying all over the place and whatever. So obviously I'm being slightly sarcastic, but not that much so, to be honest. Within a couple of months, there were people in a little bit more dispersed than they originally had been. But we were still holding true to this theory of within driving distance of Galway, because if the whole thing went pear-shaped, we wanted to be able to bring people back in again. And we had this issue about if we needed to do more training, we would still be able to bring people back in. So we didn't take the training wheels off, and we kept it with this term of driving distance from Galway. And that helped us grow to about 100, 120 people. But then when we needed that next spurt of growth, that's when we had to kind of go, hang on a second, we've got something here, and we're getting a lot of our great people from referrals. We now have people knocking on our door wondering, when is our next class? That was when we just ripped the plaster off, ripped the Band-Aid off. And we said, okay, we're now fully remote in Ireland. And literally the map of Ireland lit up like a Christmas tree. And we now, on the 26 counties of Ireland, we went from having 6 counties, 7, I think we were in 7 counties in the west coast of Ireland, to all 26 counties within probably 6 or 8 weeks. It just exploded. And that then gave us the full coverage in Ireland. So yes, hub is incredibly important to get going, but knowing when the right inflection point to actually just take away those stabilizers take the stabilizers off the bike and let the kid go. That's the most important point.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So I guess as far as your hiring and onboarding and recruitment process, taking you back from even where the people that got the MacBook Pro delivered in the first place, can you talk me through moving on now? So what does recruitment in the support team say in Ireland? Well, actually, no. So say you were in charge of the recruitment in New Zealand. How did recruitment in New Zealand look for Shopify? Like, what did you have? What was the process for a potential candidate coming into it, from getting them going into humming in a job where you're not worried about them at all? What does that sort of process look like?
Well, before I answer that, if I can just kind of go through a little bit more of the history, how then we got from Ireland into New Zealand. So, the Irish, let's call it the Irish experiment, worked really well. We then needed a footprint elsewhere. So we actually came and looked in both Australia and in New Zealand about 3 years ago. We looked around the Melbourne area. We looked in Ballarat, Geelong. Unfortunately, we didn't go to Wagga. Apologies for that. Sorry about that. We took a quick look at Wollongong. We were kind of tempted to have a look in the Sydney area, but we said no. And then we looked at Auckland, and then we fell in love with Wellington. And Wellington actually fit our eye very easily. It's a smaller town. It had a really good culture of entrepreneurship, and it just kind of felt right. So, I mean, it was I wouldn't say a snap decision, but it was actually a very easy decision to make. So how do we then get up and running in Wellington? Well, no surprise that we did the first group of training in person. It's no surprise that we flew some folks in from Ireland and some folks in from Canada to make sure that the training and the early leadership team had a level of support built around them. And that worked really well. And over the course of the first couple of months, we made sure then we got the right leadership focus in New Zealand. So you're going to rewind me now and say, well, how did you get the right people?
Thank you.
Well, the type of person we're looking for, it's really simple in a way, but it's actually quite complicated. We're looking for people who are resilient enough to recognize and be self-aware enough to know that they have the capabilities to work from home. And for me personally, the number one skill is I want the desire to work from home. And if somebody is interested in working for the company and they're going to give work from home a shot, I'm sorry, I as a recruiter would be less interested. I'm more interested in somebody who's gung-ho that work from home is something that they can do, and this is a very interesting company to do it with. And that's a crucial point of differentiation, because work from home it's a mindset. It really is a clear mindset. When you're in your little cave all day long and the little angel and the little devil are talking to each other, you want to make sure that the angel wins out in the long run. And it's very important.
Yeah, so I don't want to put you off track too much, but do you think that has, in the last few months, changed or going to make your job more challenging because people may think, yeah, I've got this remote work thing because it was sort of forced down my throat from my previous job? Do you think it's going to be trickier to find those genuine, I love this?
Yes and no, but I think on balance, the answer is no. It's actually going to make it easier. It really is. I think it's going to make it easier because, typically let's rush to kind of the end part here for a second. You're going to see that all of the analytical work that has been done on the work from home market would have indicated in the past that 20% of people want to work from home and think it's the greatest thing ever. 20% of people cannot stand it and they want to go into an office and rub shoulders with people. And about 60% of people in the middle are flexible.
Yeah.
Take it or leave it. What's actually happened is that 60% have now been fully in and they've been fully immersed in this. And in many countries, they're going to end up getting a full 12, maybe 18 months of this. And of that 60%, you can see the percentage. It is wavering a little bit, but there's a big chunk of that 60% are like, hang on a second, no more commute, no more this, no more this, no more this. I'm not going back. Mm. So I think times have completely and utterly changed. So from a recruitment perspective, there's a couple of interesting dynamics. One is, I suppose, finding those people who have, they've had their road to Damascus moment later on in their careers and went, yes, this is right for me. I think those people are easy enough to spot. You'll see the sparkle in their eye. You'll see the intent. It's working out those folks who it's the best alternative. I'll do this. They're the ones, the harder ones to kind of weed out.
Yeah, interesting. And I think that just going back to what you're saying as far as this sort of opening up and increasing that 20% down the end that like, I've got this, I think you guys are seeing a lot of the similar things to what we're seeing in rural Australia, is that it has opened up opportunities for so many people in rural Ireland like it has, and that pull to Dublin that used to be that if you want a decent job, if you want a decent salary, you've got to go and live in one of the most expensive cities in the world, and you've got to fight every other rural Irish person that's doing the same thing. Do you agree that you're seeing similar things to that?
Oh, completely. I mean, I think this is going to invert the whole, it's going to change the market in a way that, you hear people use the term new normal and all that kind of stuff. I don't believe any of that stuff, because this to me is a cataclysmic change. This is like a sort of a tsunami that has changed the shape of the landscape. It really has. What was announced in the last couple of hours here in Ireland, Google had signed for a 200,000 square foot building in downtown Dublin, and they've now pulled the plug on it. Like 200,000 square feet, it's a lot of office space in one of the most expensive cities in the world. But what they've realized is, Google has been on fire for the last 4 or 5 months, doing really, really well. I can't and don't want to speak for Google, but they've clearly been able to run their business without people being in an office. So why are companies continuing to build these enormous offices and take this enormous amount of space when they can and will have a very happy workforce working from home? What's going to have to change, Joe, and it's going to be one of the most fascinating things from a legislative perspective and a societal perspective, is the nature of the home is going to change enormously in the next couple of years. So the fourth bedroom becoming an office, or the shed being converted into an office, or whatever. There's different terms in different countries, kind of a bonus room out the back or whatever. We have a term for it in Ireland. It's called a shomra, which is the Irish word for room, which is essentially a self-contained office, sort of in your backyard.
A room.
Oh, a room. Yeah, there you go. It's all of these things are changing rapidly. Within 2 weeks of the lockdown in Ireland, I was chatting with somebody who's involved in the building trade, in the construction business in Ireland, and they were radically altering for 4 and 5 bedroom homes. They were changing them to 3 and 4 and putting in a home office, and actually beginning to change their marketing effort to actually offer in new builds, offer people the opportunity of, we'll build you your home office. Right, and this wasn't even the end of March. This was the middle of March, when we were kind of a week or two in. So that's the kind of change that was happening immediately. Now, the wave of that change isn't going to be seen in the marketplace for a couple of years. But from a rural perspective, and we saw this in Ireland, and I'm sure you're seeing this in Australia as well, when suddenly people were told not to come to the office, and they have moved into a big city, and they've got a choice of, do I concentrate my time, effort, and energy in this either small apartment or out in the suburbs, or do I go back home, right? And then when they've been able to prove to themselves and to their respective leadership team that they can actually work from where they choose, I don't think that genie's going to be able. That genie's not going to go back in the bottle.
No. And I think you sort of touched on it, that there was like that previously where you were almost convincing people to like let people work this way. It's going to be flipped completely with, like, again, those businesses trying to make people go back into the office. You're going to have to be convincing your staff to do that. And when you previously might have wanted to relocate and you had to put up the argument, it's now the argument of the boss to make you stay there. Like, you can live from it.
It's bonkers. I mean, I don't know if you've been following some of the, there's been some fantastic discourse in the press in the UK where the government ministers in the UK are trying to appeal to people's patriotism to go back to the office because of all of the subsidiary businesses that were built around offices need people to be actually, need to be going to the sandwich shops and the coffee shops. You're like, guys, you've got this ass backwards, right? Completely. So you're asking office workers to go into the office to support the businesses that went in there to support the office. No, stop this completely. So another thing that's going to be really interesting is, and I'm going to use the term exurbation. I think we're going to see a lot of people starting an exodus to the suburbs to actually live and work, as opposed to the suburbs where you live and commute. Mm-hmm. And the suburban coffee shop and the suburban co-working space will suddenly get that much more attractive. Mm-hmm. Not suddenly, I mean slowly. It'll slowly become that much more attractive, and that is a key point, because that will take, from a climate change perspective, the amount of traffic it's going to take off the roads is enormous. The amount of infrastructural dollars that will not need to be spent over the course of the next couple of years. And that's one of the challenges for governments, is where are you going to spend your money in the future? There was always a pot of cash for roads and all this sort of stuff. But if suddenly you don't need the 5-lane road, and and you don't have to plan for the 7-lane highway because that level of growth isn't happening, well, where are you going to spend the money? You spend it where the people are.
Yeah.
Not spend the money on transporting the people from one place to another and back again at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think that the challenge is going to be that there's this huge amount of investment. Like, those 7-lane highways don't just happen overnight. Like, they're planned for years and budgeted for years, and some of them are halfway through being built. Like, it's going to be very interesting. I know here that I think there's going to probably be a fair few roads that our state and federal governments are either building or fixing, or things that are going to have a lot less traffic than they were expecting to have on there. Yeah, interesting times. As far as you mentioned, when you're recruiting and looking for these people that are joining the team, the things that you're looking for, other than the fact that they are like hell-bent and dead set on working remotely.
Yep.
What do you reckon 3 of your key things that you're looking for someone, like skill set as far as the physical on the tools work? What are the 3 sort of key, say, soft skills that you guys are looking for? Or is there, like, apart from
there are some soft skills that we're looking for. There are some hard skills and some soft skills. Clearly someone who has had some exposure to some customer service skills, not necessarily in a customer service on the phone or in chat type role, but can be in person in the hospitality trade, whatever. The kind of skills that most people will have anyway at some stage in life. We look for that, the ability to connect empathetically is hugely, hugely, hugely important. The ability to be trusted, to show that you can be a trusted partner, is very important. because when you are working from home and you are X miles, 1,000 miles, kilometers, whatever, from a central location, the number one thing that holds that together, the thread that holds that together, is trust. And
trust between managers
correct.
and employees. Yeah.
So if there's a hiccup in the trust process during an interview, if you just kind of like, I'm not sure, then that's hard. It's hard to get over the I'm not sure. And then we also look for another very much of a kind of a behavioral thing, which is authenticity. The type of person who will say very openly and clearly that will share a story of how they failed in something, to me shows somebody's absolute and utter strength. To be able to have the vulnerability and the transparency and the confidence to be able to share a failure and show how you've learned from it, that's manna from heaven.
That's gold. I just want to take you back to the trust thing. And I think about this because I put trust and I put like culture. You hear a lot of businesses that say, teach the skills once you've got them, hire for culture. Okay, teach the skills once they're there because you can trust them. Are you genuinely using like a gut feeling as far as measuring trust? Like how in an interview or in several interviews can you gauge that this person is not going to take the mic? They're going to actually get out of their pajamas and they will be on the call and they will do their best work. Like that trust thing. Well, I suppose two ways. How do you see that in someone other than that gut feeling, or is it the gut feeling? And then two, how do you sort of demonstrate as a company that you are almost, they will come on and we trust you implicitly until you don't? So
let me share the story of somebody, let's say the first kind of 8 to 10 weeks of exposure to a job in Shopify support. There would be the recruitment process where there would be quite a number of interviews on Zoom or Google Meet or whatever. So there's the requirement that we trust that Joe Palmer has a strong enough internet signal. Okay. So do we go and check your home? No. But it's pretty darn obvious after 2 or 3 interviews that you either have it or you don't. Okay. So that's a kind of a point of trust. Then you've successfully been hired, you come on and we do a 6-week training program. And that's 6 weeks, 8 hours a day with a team, with the same team of 10 people and a trainer, 10, maybe 15, maybe 20 people at times, and a trainer. You will show your true colors absolutely within the way we approach it. We get quite personal and open and friendly very early on. And it would be incredibly hard to pull the wool over our eyes in a situation like that, because it is a very open, honest environment, and it becomes incredibly obvious if somebody's not pulling their weight. So to your point, somebody not showing up for work, I mean, it's so obvious in our world, from a remote perspective.
So just to clarify, that training, the 8 hours a day for 10 weeks, did you say that's now all virtual? Not doing the
6 weeks. Oh yeah, for 6 weeks. So the only time that we do it in person has been when we've actually landed in a particular market, and it's been sort of let's call it the embryonic stage, where we've actually just kind of dug in and built, and then after that we pull out and it's all 100% remote.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
It's very obvious. It's so incredibly obvious in a very short period of time when you've got a trainer and 10 or 15 people online 8 hours a day for a couple of weeks. It's very, very obvious if someone isn't pulling their weight.
Yeah, and I guess you're then at the same time, that is like spotlight on culture-wise as well. If they're not joining in with the banter and not getting the... Yeah.
Now, I'm going to peel back one of those points, like not joining in with the banter. Like, this is not a happy clappy, everybody has to be the same type of person. We have plenty of folks in our organization who are who are quite eclectic and quite different, and we welcome difference significantly. So there are some people who really want that kind of who want to be chatty and want to get together after hours and have kind of Zoom drinks on Zoom and all that kind of stuff. And then there's plenty of other people who are like, come 4 o'clock, good luck, good night, I'm out of here. Yeah. We have some folks that have been with us for 4, 5, 6 years and have never actually interacted have never come to any of the in-person events, because that's their nature, and there's no mandate that you must do that.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's perfect. Then I was going to then segue into that. Nicely done. What do you sort of try to do? Like you said, that it's not mandated to turn up. Do you have sort of a rule of thumb with at least the opportunity to catch up in the flesh?
Absolutely. So, and I'm going to phrase this in, let's call it pre-COVID times, because what we've experienced in the last 5 or 6 months is just batshit crazy. So we can't really, and that was a very unfortunate term to use. It was slightly different. It's been slightly confusing the last couple of months. Sorry, that was a terrible slip of the tongue. Delete.
Sorry.
Okay.
Crowd is totally down with it.
So, one of the things that we do is in the cities in Ireland, because we're kind of concentrated in the town of Galway, as I mentioned, and then there's 4 or 5 other cities where we'd have a decent concentration. What we do is we have very organically, we have pockets of people who want to get together to scratch that community itch. So in the town, in the city I'm in Cork, there's about, I don't know, we've probably got between 40 and 60, depends on the time of the year, whatever, folks based here. And we get together once a month, typically have got together once a month in a co-working site, and we rent a room for the day, and anybody can come. We typically would get maybe a quarter to a third of the folks in the area would come. Sometimes it just doesn't suit. Some of them are away, got family issues, totally and utterly discretionary. And we'll get lunch delivered in. But it's really interesting because people come to work, come together for the day. But it's almost like a library, because we're all used to working from home. We're all used to an element of quiet. And then you come into a room and you'd have this expectation, like, this gobshite here. The first one I went into, I walked into the room and I was, after about 10 minutes, I'm chatting away. Oh, hi, how are you? Good to see you here. And eventually somebody leant over and said, can you just be quiet? We're actually working. You can talk later at lunchtime. Oh God. It was, I was put back in my box pretty quickly. But we do have we do have these, what we call pop-up offices. And we've done these very, very effectively in New Zealand, in Ireland, with our group in the East Coast of Canada, the group of West Coast of Canada, and it's been a huge success for us. We typically would do it on a monthly basis, depending on the size. Like Galway, where we have a deep concentration, we actually do one every single week. And the cost is it's so minor to rent a room for one day, and pay for lunch. And what we find is it's not the same people come all the time, but when people want to scratch that itch, they'll go, and the rest of the time they don't. And then on a quarterly basis, we would try to get our teams together. But again, the more you disperse and the less you're concentrated in an area, it's quite hard to get people together as a team. So a lot of times we'll do that virtually. And then once a year, we typically have had a sort of a blowout party where we get everybody together for 2 or 3 days, and we have a summit, and we have a lot of speakers come in, and we do a lot of events, and we have a few Diet Cokes at the end of the night.
I can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
I love as well, does everyone still get like the Shopify Tshirt, so that if you happen to be down the street, you wear the shirt and then you meet other colleagues that are wearing the shirt? Absolutely.
Yeah, I apologize, I don't have mine on today. But there have been a number of situations where people have spotted other folks in a Shopify T-shirt and kind of, sorry, who are you? And that's how people realize that there's another person from Shopify in their neighborhood.
That's wonderful. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, look, John, I could keep talking all day, but I'm not going to. But I really, really appreciate your little insight into the world of Shopify, and it's really exciting to hear what you're seeing and thinking on a big global stage as well, as far as what this. I'm with you. I don't really like the concept of new normal. What this monumental train is going to mean for everyone. So I really appreciate your time. So thank you very much.
No problem at all, Joe. Talk to you again sometime, I'm sure.
Okay, thank you.